Draait de camera als mijn laatste vraag. Ja.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. My name is Koen Stuik. I'm spokesperson for WWF here in Belgium, and we have this opportunity to work together with the school and with the other 5 schools in Europe, which is very interesting for us because as an NGO we don't often have the opportunity of working on with big advertising companies. As you probably can imagine, big campaigns around all the themes that we work with are very expensive, and first thing. And the second thing is that working with students is very interesting for us because it can bring in new ideas, especially from the digital world, because you are all, as we talk about digital natives, I presume, and you also have a very good knowledge of what's happening in the digital world. So today I'd like to present you a business case, an idea for something that we would very much like to build a campaign around, and I'd like to present you this today. So the idea that we thought about is drivers of deforestation. As you know, or you might know, deforestation is a major problem on the globe today. So I'd like to tell you a bit more about this in a minute. First of all, I'd like to tell you a bit about WWF. It's important if you work for a client that you know who the client is and what they do, what their mission is. WWF is known for its old name, which was World Wildlife Fund, but that's since the 80s, begin 90s, the name changed into Worldwide Fund for Nature. So this is important to think about. WWF is not just working with animals, wildlife. We are working to preserve nature as it is and to try and stop the degradation of the planet's natural environment, and to build a future in which people live in harmony with nature. So what does this mean? It means conserving the world's biological diversity. It means ensuring that the use of renewable natural resources is sustainable, and that promoting the reduction of pollution and wasteful consumption. These are the main things that we try to work around, and with the goal, let people live in harmony with nature. Okay? Do we take questions and answers at the end? I mean,
maybe it's easier.
Yes, we will not include it in the...
Yes, but then it's easier to have it all together.
Okay. Yeah, okay, great. To give you an overview of the deforestation problem, I'm going to show you a video to give you a little bit, to give you the right mindset to listen to this.
Without responsible forestry, the world's forests, as well as the wildlife and people that depend on them, are severely threatened.
Deforestation continues at an unprecedented rate around the world, especially in places like the Amazon, Borneo and Congo. It is the #1 cause of biodiversity loss.
One of the biggest drivers for deforestation is the clearing of land for agriculture by companies or communities. In tropical countries, companies regularly clear land for large industrial oil palm and soybean plantations and cattle ranches, while communities do the same for short-term economic benefits of rice and other crops. This results in forest fires that have destroyed tens of millions of hectares of forest since the mid-90s.
And is the second most important cause of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Therefore, it's a massive contributor to climate change.
As well as contributing to species decline, poorly managed forests contribute to an increase in human-wildlife conflict, degrade watersheds, rivers, streams and soils, and adversely affect local communities through lost livelihoods, forced resettlement, landslides and flooding. It's estimated that by 2010, most of the 3 billion people who depend on fuel wood from local forests will find it difficult or impossible to obtain. And illegal logging will continue on a massive scale. The numbers are staggering. In the Congo Basin, as much as 30% of the timber felled is believed to be illegal. The same is true for the Russian Far East. In Indonesia, it's estimated that almost 60% is illegal. Illegal logging not only contributes to forest loss, but also economic losses. Governments miss out on $10 to $15 billion a year.
There is also an economic aspect to illegal logging. Governments are losing tax revenues, and companies are not able to compete on a level playing field when their competitors are acting illegally.
Illegal logging has a negative effect on prices, making it hard for legal operators to make a profit. In fact, in the United States alone, over $1 billion in losses are incurred each year by the US timber industry due to illegal logging abroad. In the face of these threats to humanity and natural environment, business and economies, GFTM believes that global markets for forest products can be transformed into a force for positive change.
Sorry. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of a perspective on the many different angles on this problem, and also the effects that it has on people, on our planet, and on ourselves also. And one of the main facts that we need to realize is that 99% of all deforestation is of human origin. Means like natural fires might be also a little bit of an origin, but 99% is human origin. So this is very important to realize. That means that we can also do something about it, which is the main reason why we as WWF try to campaign around this topic, of course. Now let me just go to the 3 biggest threats to deforestation. And the first one has got a lot to do with our direct way of living. I don't know if you realize this, but the medium European citizen yearly eats 61 kilos of soy. Although even if you're not a vegetarian, when you're not a vegetarian, you don't think about soy because you don't really eat it directly, mostly. But all this soy goes through the meat that we eat. And this is one of the biggest drivers of deforestation worldwide. So this is a map of the Cerrado, which is the interior of Brazil. You can see here, it's a very big region. And the Cerrado is actually the area which still got a lot of natural resources and a lot of nature that must be kept. And still you can see that so all the green areas are areas where deforestation is now, it's all turned into soy plantations. And all this soy all goes to our meat, to our pigs, to our beef, our chickens, we all eat the same soy. And so something that we need to know about this is that a lot of these soy right now is planted on areas that used to be forest or used to be natural areas with a lot of biodiversity. That's why WWF asks people to eat less meat, but we'll come to that later. Another big commodity, that's the second biggest, is palm oil. And palm oil you can find in things like chocolate, in pizza, in lipstick, in perfume, in all kinds of, not perfume, but mostly shampoo and things like that. There's a lot of palm oil used. And this palm oil right now is eating away the forest in Eastern Asia. So you can see this is a map of Borneo. Borneo is in the center of Indonesia and Malaysia. And this is a map, I think, in 2015. And it's diminishing, the forest in the whole island is diminishing at an alarming rate. And this is all because of the palm oil. Because big companies are deforesting very fast to plants with monocultures of palm oil. And this has got a lot of consequences. A third element is timber, of course. If you think about forest, you think about timber and pulp and paper. And also, and this was mentioned in the video, they were talking about illegal logging. Illegal logging means that you are logging in areas that were not meant to be logged. And this is a big problem. And that's why we are lobbying governments all over the world to try and stop this. And actually we had a major win this week only, because the European community has now some agreements with different countries where it takes timber from. And we have an agreement with Indonesia. And Indonesia has conceded that it will work against illegal logging, and it will make sure that the wood that comes into Europe will not come from an illegal origin anymore. And this is one major win. This is something that we have been lobbying for decades. So there are some steps in the good direction also. So let's look at some facts. So forest degradation and deforestation are the biggest threat for at least 1.6 billion people who depend directly on the forest, as well as 10,000 of species living in these forests. As many 1.6 billion people depend directly. That means that they go to the wood for their firewood, for example. They go and collect fruits in the forest. They go and hunt in the forest to get bushmeat. They go in the forest, or they rely on the forest for all kinds of fruits and vegetables, but they also get energy from the forest, etc. So this is very important. All these people, they get their fresh water from the forest also, and so now there's many regions in Africa where there's been so much deforestation that people now have to walk 2 days to get water and firewood to go to the forest. And 1 generation ago, they were just living next to the forest. You see, so it's going very fast. This is a problem. But this is 1.6 people who depend directly on the forest, but we also depend on the forest. For us, it's much easier because we are not connected to the forest in this way, but we still depend on the forest also. So it's very important. These are 2 examples of 2 animals that live in the forest and that are affected by the fact that their habitat is shrinking. And this is also one of the main threats for many animals, because if your habitat shrinks, then there's no more room for you to live in, and it's got a direct effect on the number of animals living in these forests. And that's why, by the way, a month ago we presented our Living Planet report, which is the big report that we do every 2 years, and we give a state of the planet. And in this Living Planet report, we saw that we've been monitoring animals, populations around the globe, and we've seen that there's a decline of the number of animals in the world of 58% since the 1970s. So the number of animals is going down. And this means if we don't do something about it now, and we let it continue, by 2020 already, there will be 67% of all the animals gone, all over the world. This means this is really a wake-up call. So what's the second fact? And this is of course also very important. Deforestation is the second biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, and therefore one of the main contributors to climate change. So as you know probably, climate change is caused by CO2, which is emitted in the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels, so cars, making energy, charcoal factories that produce energy, for example. All these ships, air transport, they're all emitting CO2. So this is all these things together are the first emitter of greenhouse gases. But the second one is forest deforestation, because every time you cut a tree, it releases the CO2 that the tree has kept. And this is, so that's why the forests of this world are very important carbon sinks. You know, they keep the CO2 for us, and they change it into oxygen, which we need. That's why forests are very important also. And of course, you can turn this around. If you want to stop climate change, and you will stop, if you stop deforestation now, then you've got a big win for against climate change also. So it works in both ways, of course. Also, planting new trees also has got an effect, but it's much slower, because the time for a tree to take as much carbon as a big tree that's been there for 200 years, it takes so much time that it's much slower to plant new trees than just stop deforestation right now. Another fact, between 2000 and 2014, 2.5 million square kilometers of forest were lost globally. And this corresponds to more than the surface of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as you probably know, Congo is a very big country. It's about 80 times the size of Belgium, and it's bigger than Western Europe. So it's a lot of forest. And this is a way that we can show. There's a little animation that was made by Global Forest Watch.